Kia ora koutou. My name's Bridget. I consider myself better at making things than talking about them, so if you'll bear with me with my notes occasionally. Right. I have a clicker. Here we go. So this is Grandad in the 1970s in Greymouth, wearing one of his favourite disco shirts. Yeah. Grandad was a bit of a badass. He's not someone that you would want to mess with. He had a really, really rough life. He had a lot of industrial accidents that involved getting a ton of coke dumped on his back, mining accidents, also tuberculosis. He managed to survive all of it. But the really, really cool thing about Grandad is he was an expert embroiderer of scenic and floral tapestry. Yeah. So all of our family textile heirlooms were actually made by Grandad in occupational therapy, recovering from his various mishaps. Yeah. Occupational therapy became his access to developing some really mean craft skills that he otherwise, may not have had access to. So they didn't exactly have men's sewing circles down at the many pubs he frequented. So he's a good example of access to technology coming through unexpected pathways. So it's sort of like in video games when a portal you're on a level, a portal will open up out of nowhere and then take you to an even better level, in theory. Yep. So I said I've referred to embroidery as technology, and embroidery is technology. Embroidery is tech. Tech is just making stuff. The original meaning of technology was making stuff with tools. So that's an important part of being human. We have opposable thumbs, and we've been using them our entire backstory to make cool stuff. Yeah. So we've gone a bit off track with the way we think about technology nowadays. We tend to think of it as being digital, to do with gadgets. So this can prevent us from accessing, a whole lot of new skills using a lot of different tools, that could be potentially life-transforming for a lot of us. Right, here we go. That's me when I was 13. Yeah. I grew up in South Canterbury in a town that was a really good place to dream yourself out of. There were no computers. There was only 2 TV channels. We were lucky if we could get those. Video gaming meant going and playing Spaceys down at the dairy on the one arcade game after school and fighting for your place on it. Yeah. I was really bored. I wanted to experience culture and music. So I cracked open a television to get the copper wire out so I could string it up onto the roof of our house so I could pick up RDU in Christchurch and listen to some cool new music. I didn't know it at the time, but a while back RDU had a byline that said, "Kill your television." I didn't think they mean literally. Yep. I spent a lot of time at the town's local Carnegie Library. It was a small brick library funded by Andrew Carnegie, who was this American steel baron who thought it was really important for people all over the world to access libraries to improve themselves. So, through his generous donation, I, at 13, found access to Jean-Paul Sartre. Yeah. So, I found out through Sartre that life potentially had no meaning and everything was purposeless. And I thought this was awesome. Yeah. This provoked an adolescent existential breakdown. I was like, holy crap. What if it really does mean nothing? What do you do? So the answer Sartre gave me was, you have to make stuff. Yep. Yeah. Note the 80s Frankie Goes to Hollywood font. Yeah. So my mum was part of a local craft collective. So, I thought, okay, fine, mum's not cool, but I'll just see. So I went along to one of their meetings. There were heaps of awesome ladies who would spin and knit and weave their own products through the local sheep population. That we had this amazing resource of sheep, but nothing else. And they would sell hats and scarves and all these other great things to the rhinestone bedazzled Texans that would stop by on the tour buses. Yeah, this helped put food on the table for some people, so it's pretty impressive. I learned to knit because in 1986 I had to have this big bat-wing sweater dress, one of those big colourful 80s numbers that they had in Fashion Quarterly. No one was going to make me one. The one clothes shop in town had nothing of the sort. Even if I could afford it, I couldn't exactly buy it online. Yep. So, I knitted because I wanted this frock, but through it I found purpose through making, and that gave me the antidote to Sartre's void that I needed, and it prevented my friends and family from having to listen to me talk about existential angst all the time, because they were getting really, really over that. It was very uncool to be a knitter in the 80s, by the way, yeah. But still, I found something through that and made a big difference. When I finally got to leave town, I went to art school in Dunedin. I studied textiles because I got really hooked by then. In my final year, I picked up meningitis. I was in a coma for a week in intensive care. I got given last rites, and I was actually declared clinically dead. But somehow I amazingly rebooted, or my heart did anyway. All I can remember from that time when people asked me about it, all I could think about was I'd been working on a woven tapestry at art school for 2 months. It was really technical and hard, and all I could think about was getting out of the hospital to get back to art school and finish this damn tapestry. So I did finish it, but then that led to a bit of conceptual dissatisfaction with using fabric as a medium. So having a thing for copper wire that started when I was a teenager, I started to weave some of it into my fabrics to power LEDs. This mostly resulted in fire, though. Yeah. So trying something different, I went to university. I got in with a really bad crowd of young computer science students. Bandwidth was really hard to get hold of back then, so we found some security holes in some of the labs. And so we had unlimited free access to the internet in 1994 in New Zealand. Oh, that's the black existentialist sheep I forgot to show you. Anyway, so I worked out that I could download pictures of Tank Girl on this new thing called Mosaic, which was one of the first web browsers ever. 20 years ago, this internet thing was really, really radical stuff. You have no idea how big this was. This was like really, really big. I learned HTML and forgot about textiles for a long time. When my student allowance finally ran out, I moved to Christchurch. I got a job in a school library with a Task Force Green position. That the principal there, Bob, he'd just read Wired magazine and asked if I could make the school's first website. It turned out that was one of the first school websites in New Zealand. So I ended up teaching a whole lot of really curious kids how to use the web back in 1995, it was by then. Not so much the teachers, they were a little bit scared and confused by it, so they stayed away from me. Yeah. But I didn't realise it then, but that sort of foreshadowed what I do today, because one of my favourite things as part of my job today is I get to teach curious people in libraries how to make really cool stuff. So, okay. Oh, there's Mosaic, by the way. That was the first web browser. Okay, so in the last school holidays, I teamed up with Danny and Audrey from the South Library Learning Centre, and we went out to New Brighton to teach a day-long 3D printing and modelling workshop for kids who just would never have access. They don't have computers at home. They wouldn't have access to any of these cool learning tools normally. When we started talking about 3D modelling, they just glazed over. So they're all mad about playing Minecraft on the library PCs though. So we use this thing called Printcraft, which is a server within the Minecraft world that you can actually build things inside and then export to a 3D printer and print. So through these, observing the kids, I realised access to technology is not just about having physical proximity to computers. Every aspect of it is important, including what gets people really amped and excited about technology and makes them want to learn about it. So these kids went nuts with it. They learned design process, and they ended up making some really cool fan art like creepers and Endermen and zombies and things, and they took home their own little action figures that they're 3D printed on the library's new MakerBot. So that was pretty cool. Next. Minecraft's great for kids, but there's a lot of different portals to technology, for people through their different interests. So last week, I ran a haberdashery 3D printing workshop at the South Library specifically for older New Zealanders and a few curious crafters. So we ended up designing buttons and buckles and some bling, and all of them, there was a dozen ladies, and some had never really done much with computers. Yeah. And they just nailed it, eh? They were just really, really happy, and so we're going to run some more of those because, they were really fun, and I just don't know what they're going to come up with next. Yeah. So for the last 5 years, I've done a lot of workshops teaching all sorts of different people how to sew LEDs into fabric as a means of learning basic circuitry and sort of as another portal into learning about electronics. Some of the ladies that impressed me the most were accomplished embroiderers guild types who just were ace at embroidery, and their circuitry was perfect. There was no flickering, everything was they just nailed it. Yeah, and they'd never done electronics before, so, there you go, skills can transfer. Yeah. Okay, yep, that's a fox with light up eyes. Okay, so this is one of my favourite people, Walter at Fablab Lima in Peru. So Walter has designed a digital file for a laser printed loom based on his traditional loom. So he's made it so that you can send this digital file all around the world to Fab Labs or makerspaces and cut it out so he can share his making tradition with everyone digitally. He also uses it to teach local digital kids how to connect with their roots a bit more, because Textile in Peru was a great way of communicating, family stories and everything. So, but yeah, they just want to go on computers. So he's doing a really good job sort of merging the two, technology, craft. Yep. So yeah, so me and Walter are collaborating a little bit and talking about using conductive knitting yarn and some of the weavings, so that we can literally tell our stories through craft. This means that we can make crocheted, say, granny squares and connect it to speakers and sensors and things that will, then generate sound files of the story behind that particular artifact. And this is everyday stuff using everyday craft skills, So, yeah, there we go. Yep. Here we go. So I love these stories about accessing technology, but it's important to realise that there are a lot of ways we get denied access to technology too. So a few months ago, I was lucky enough to go to the conference of the International Fab Lab Network based out of MIT. This was in Barcelona, and I got to do a workshop with these awesome guys from Togo in West Africa, and they'd built a 3D printer out of e-waste. Now, this is a solution to a couple of problems there. So basically, in West Africa, it's used as a bit of a dumping ground for e-waste from US and Europe. So basically, they can utilise a lot of that. And also, it provides access to 3D printers for a lot of local learners and inventors. It's a great way to come up with solutions for everyday problems, even fittings for taps or anything, or something even bigger. Yeah. So because we're all part of a Fab Lab network, we can share digital files with each other anywhere in the world. So I could solve a problem here for somewhere else, potentially. This is one of the things I love about it. Okay. So the challenge with our friends in Africa was resources. There are other challenges with the way we access technology too. One of them is the way we perceive gender in tech. So last year, 2013, I went into a game store in Wellington, and I was ordering a really violent video game, and the guy there, he just sniggered to his mate, yeah. and he was like, "All right, this is for your husband, right?" And I was like, "It's all right, I said him right, it's all good." But there's a lot of women who have a lot worse problems than I do. So when I was at a Fab conference 2 years ago, I heard about some women who just aren't allowed to learn electronic circuitry or code or anything because it's considered man's work still. So we hatched a plan with a couple of local Fab Lab members to come up with a way that they can learn the basics of circuitry through sewing with a needle and thread and some conductive sewing thread. So, because it's perfectly acceptable for young ladies to do sewing. So, Yeah, so that was a way of, just a little example of how the Fab Lab can, help each other solve local problems. So my life is all about making stuff. But at the moment, my current job is setting up a Fab Lab in Christchurch. We're part of the MIT network, which originated at the Centre for Bits and Atoms there. We're not just for geeks and techos. It's all about the pathways we provide, not just to the hardware, but the way you learn, the way you to help you realize your invention that everyone's got inside of them. And we believe that everyone has a really good invention inside of them. We just need to sort of, give them the relevant and help and support through that. We want to make a welcoming environment where just technology is just another thing you use, to make stuff happen. It's not scary. Although some of the machines are really, really big and they need a technician, but, we have someone to look after that. Yep. So I want to end by telling you, that's a little bit of eTextiles, that's conductive thread. I want to end by telling you about one of my favourite people, Luca. So Luca is 12 and she's using a tiny computer called a Raspberry Pi to design a really cool knitting gadget to help people knit really complex hand knit designs using LEDs and a display and everything. So crafting has come a really long way since I was 12. It's pretty obvious that we need to lose these artificial boundaries that we've drawn between technology and craft. So for Luca to succeed, she needs access to hardware she can work with. She needs access to teachers that support the projects that interest her. She needs access to a culture where she feels welcome and safe. Only when we address every one of these aspects of access to technology will we be able to realise its potential for everybody. Thank you.